but we think we can keep them stable for sure. That's our goal.
I just want to correct some of the information that you're putting out. First of all, when you actually formed this collaboration that you did between CLWA and Newhall, you clearly stated that Valencia was not included because we were just, and I am a Valencia ratepayer, I am also a SCOPE board member. And you told, in writing, I have it at home, Valencia is merely an investment of CLWA. You bought it, you have the shares, and we were nothing more than an investment, in writing, at the time you merged. I'm also a board member of SCOPE, and I also know that Newhall was actually suing you at the time you decided to go into this merger. You don't bring that up. You give out half-truths that really are deceiving the public, and that whole statement was one of them. Also, the way the rates were raised and the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, has actually ruled that no, Valencia was no longer private because it was bought by a public company. You. But that didn't stop you from raising those rates because Newhall Land and Farming put a hold, a challenge on there. And they had it on there for almost 5 years. They just now, and I have this also in writing because I received the information. And they said, oh, all right, now we're withdrawing it. Now, wait a minute. There's something very foul-smelling about that. That all those years, they were able to hold that. All those years, and then you making the claim all these years that it was private. It's private, private, private. They raised our rates as though they were private, yet they had public hearings like 218 as though they were public. They raised those rates in that manner, and I went down there every time they did it. And it's ridiculous what you were telling the public along the lines of that. And I would really hate to see this go through the way it is, because it's not going to be beneficial for the retail. All you're trying to do is make a huge grab of all the retail in the valley. You did that with Santa Clarita Water Company. You bought it, and they ruled, well, you've got it, but you have to run it as a retail company. And then you said, well, we bought the stock of Valencia, and look, they're just an investment.
All right. So your question is,
please.
Your question, Mr. President?
My question is, why do you think you're going to get away with what you're telling people constantly? The benefits of this are. You have not raised the rates of the imported water.
okay.
So, why have you been doing that? Because you want to make it even. You want to blur the difference between inflated costs and retail costs. And if you can say you're not doing that, then I guess that's my question.
Okay.
If you say I'm lying, or are you?
Gentlemen.
I'm still struggling. I have a question.
May I ask my question? Yes, you may ask your question. But really, you should be honest with the public.
I have a question because I'm looking at Chiquita Canyon landfill, and I received a PDF file from water company addressed to the county about water. And I read that I think it's going to come from 93 AF to 150 AF, something like that. Do you know what I'm speaking of?
No, are you talking about electricity?
CCAC.
The amount of water delivered to Chiquita.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that
Yes.
is that AF? Is that how you?
Oh, acre feet.
Yes. I have no idea what it is. I would like to know how many gallons of water we need a day for 150 AF.
Well,
Gentlemen,
There's about 329,000 gallons per acre foot.
Can somebody write that, because I don't have my paper and my...
So you
yeah, I'll save it for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be very nice. And so it seems like Valencia Water Company is going to provide the water to Chiquita Canyon landfill. And as I am from Santa Clarita Valley, and I have been very careful with my water, certifying my plants, my vegetable, my grass, whatever we needed to do, I'm asking myself, how are we going to provide that every day for 35 years when we are asked to be very careful and sacrifice our water when we have drought or something like that? And if water company comes into the Santa Clarita Valley district, whatever you name it now, I'm asking, how are we going to manage that? Am I going to suffer for it?
So I think your question is, you heard that it's 150 acre feet
Yes.
per year being delivered to Chiquita Canyon? I think that's what you said. And 150 acre feet a year is about 135,000 gallons a day. That's to answer your question. So that's how many gallons a day Chiquita Canyon will use for dust suppression.
How many did you say? I'm not...
There's 150 acre feet times 329,000 gallons per acre foot. Think of a football field 1 foot thick.
Okay.
That's about 329,000 gallons, and they are purchasing 150 acre feet a year. You multiply all that up and divide it by 365 days, it's about 135 gallons a day. 135,000 gallons a day.
That's a lot of water to me.
Well, it's a very large space, and if it wasn't dust suppressed, if it didn't have the water, it would be a dusty mess.
Now, my problem is to know if I am going to gain something by having Valencia water in my district or not, because if they give the water, or if they sell the water to Chiquita Canyon landfill, and I'm asked to sacrifice the water in years of drought, I'm not okay with that.
Well, I think what she needs to know is.
By the way, I love that fret jack.
I think
I know,
gentlemen,
and I just received the file, the PDF file, 62 pages. English is my second language, and I'm trying to understand because, I try to be a good citizen, and I have sacrificed, like I said, my vegetables, my fruit, and everything.
gentlemen, I think you can help her out by. I think you can help her out by explaining the ratio of what 150,000 gallons a day is compared to the total capacity that we need to supply the whole valley.
Right. I think that will be informative. We work on a document called the Urban Water Management Plan, and so it looks at both what we're using today, right, as far as how much water we're using today, and what is planned to use for the future.
Yeah.
And so those amounts are contained in that, and we have plans to be able to serve that amount. To give you an idea of the order of magnitude, every year right now, we're right about 70,000 acre feet compared to 150 acre feet for the landfill. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scale of how much water.
I had no idea, like I said. I didn't have time
No,
to ask questions.
that's fine.
And I want to make sure that you incorporate that into your plans if you want to merge with Valencia. If you want the Santa Clarita Water District, I don't know how you call it, I don't remember, to merge with Valencia. I want to make sure that you know that.
Yes. We have that water identified in there. We knew that someday they would be coming asking for it. And they're like any other business in town. If somebody wants to build a hair salon, they've got to come and ask for a water supply.
Yeah.
Whatever business you want, They have to come and ask for a water supply. We don't get to pick and choose which ones we would like to supply it to and which ones we don't want to supply it to. If they come and they pay the fees, they can get water for their business. And that works for Chiquita as it does for the Cheesecake Factory that came in and paid a very large,
there is a difference of
yes. And we have, just to let you know, we have about 3.5 years worth of water in storage in the ground in the Central Valley that we've been banking water in the valley. So we're not short of water. Water's been identified for housing development. All of those, when those things take place, that's our job, is to prepare for those. We don't get to decide what they build.
And to give you some perspective, 150 acre feet is 0.2% of the supply or of the demand. Does that make sense? In other words, 0.2% of the water that gets delivered to different residents and customers, it's a fraction. It's not very much water.
It makes sense. It's just I want to understand.
Yes, okay.
It would be about the same as 150 homes in our valley.
Right.
Well, good evening. I'm Joan Dunn, former Vice President of the Newhall County Water District. And I have been looking at the bill. I have some problems with it. A public meeting of the Newhall County Water District and Castaic Lake Water Agency, we were all told the new district would be composed of all 4 water retailers. Now we have patchwork legislation, and only NCWD, the Newhall County Water District, and Castaic are primary subjects. This should be made with all of the retailers involved before this bill is finished. I think that it should be enacted saying that this is going to happen. It just says will. Will is not a legal word. And that means that they can, you guys at the Castaic Lake Water Agency can get out of it, just like you've done before with other issues that have come up. You seem to weasel out, and you can have your attorneys help you do this. I want to know, why isn't it in there that that Valencia Water Company will be part of this before you close this bill, before this bill is over? And so that might mean it'll have to take a little longer and maybe go into next year. But we need this in there because we were promised that. And also you promised the Los Angeles County Water Works District 36 that it would be in there. That is all up in the air. So you aren't doing what you had said. And I am sorry that Mr. Wilkes, or Senator Wilk, is not here, because he had told us that this was his bill. Well, I don't see that it's his bill. It's getting all sorts of things happening with it. He at one time was a consultant for the Castaic Lake Water Agency in 2007 under White, let's see, what do they call it? White House Media. So he has ties with Castaic Lake Water Agency. But why is it he's saying it's his bill and it's all changing?
Well, the bill is Senator Wilkes. It's his bill. He can change anything in it he wants. That's his prerogative because he's carrying the bill. Valencia Water Company, when Mrs. Noldermeyer gets up and says that have said that it's only an investment, it's a community investment. When we purchased Valencia Water Company, it's to do this kind of process to make it a part of the community. It was held by the Newhall Land and Farm. There was no public board of directors. By us buying it, and now we'll be able to take it public. It'll become a public agency. You'll be able to vote for the people that represent that area as well. And the intent is to put it in there within the first 6 months that the bill is passed. That's what it's there for. It's not for any other purpose. Why would we keep it? When it goes public, the one thing they have to do right now is, because they're a private company, they have to pay vehicle license fees, they have to pay land taxes, they have to pay franchise taxes, all of those things that public agencies don't have to pay. When we take them public, That all goes away, and that money goes back in to Valencia Water Company to help maintain their infrastructure.
Okay.
That they don't have to pay. So it is absolutely, when this thing is done, it's the goal of the board is to have that in there within the first 6 months.
Okay, but you say intent. Intent is not a legal word.
Well, we intend to have the bill passed, but there's, you know.
It has to say that all of them are going to be in there. And if you don't say that, then as far as I'm concerned, that is not a good bill. Thank you.
My name is Ed Dunn. I'm a former director and president of the Newhall County Water District and a former director of the Castaic Lake Water Agency. This SB 634 bill is so costly. I'm wondering why you people that have decided to go this way didn't study what it was going to cost you to do this before you started moving on it. You've already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this between the consultants and the attorneys and your own people, and it's staggering what you've spent on it already. And then the amount to put this in force is going to cost a fortune, and that doesn't seem to be bothering anyone. The only thing it seems to be is we must have it. We must have it. And if anyone takes the time to read through this entire bill now, they will see all the things that Castaic has had removed, all the protections that were put in our legislations to protect the public and keep us democratic. It says doesn't apply. It is removed. It is repealed all the way through. And then you put a corker at the end of it, Section 29, that you put in there, that if any of the community becomes unhappy with the way the new district's performing, they can't form a new district to replace you without getting permission from your board. They call that developing an authoritarian regime known as Russia. That same type of thing. You will be in charge of all water in the valley. And then when you make some of these answers here, they don't make sense. You said Valencia is held out because there's a lawsuit. Okay, Newhall County Water District has a lawsuit. Why aren't they being held out? And if they're held out, you're standing by yourself. And you came out in public meetings and said all of these would be involved. When you look at your map, they all need to be involved. You can't have a district with a hole in the center and you got some other company held out. I believe that probably Newhall Land doesn't ever want to be in it. And unless this bill says they are in it, they are one of them, when the bill is finished, then they don't ever have to get in it. So why do you keep touting that? And then why are you touting you keep wanting to save money? And Castaic Lake Water Agency just recently passed, I sat at the meeting where they passed $700,000, and they're going to add a public information officer, $700,000 labor per year, and they're going to have an assistant general manager, I guess, so the general manager won't have to work. Why are they spending all this money continuously? And both agencies spend money to clothe themselves, and both agencies spend money to feed themselves before meetings. If you want to save money, there's lots of places you can save money. Why aren't you saving money? And to go ahead and try, your own consultant about districts found it just about impossible to govern this area other than the way it is. The way it is now, everybody's getting water. You do not have to add anything to change anything if you leave it the way it is. If you want good government, make the Valencia one a special district and make the Santa Clarita special district. Make it like the school districts.
But I think the question was...
No one's getting rid of the school districts, so why are you trying to get rid of the water districts? Those are some of my questions. And you don't tell the truth. Everything seems to be a deception. And we get tired of that. And this bill is so convoluted, it just won't even work, except it'll give you our authority and regime.
Let's give him a chance to answer, Ed. So I think the question was, what amount of money have we spent to form the district? And what amount of money do you think it would cost when we combine them? I think those are the two major questions.
Yeah. I'll take just one quick stab at that. As I mentioned earlier, the outside services, right? We have historically, both agencies had active lobbyists. Those contracts are paid on a monthly service fee. So they would have been working on other legislation or this legislation, and so from that standpoint, it's a wash. The one thing I wanted to point out, and also the study that we looked at, the combining of the agencies, it actually incorporated some increased costs of formation. We estimated those at $250,000 for a 2-year period. So those were netted out of the savings so that it would be a more conservative estimate that was provided. One thing I did want to point out about, I think one of the big things that we're missing here is the governance. This district is the community's district. It is going to be an elected board. If the community wants changes in the way that policies work, or they're not happy with the way that the board is doing things, they get to elect different board members. And so I think that vehicle, and that's something that we wanted to make sure we pursued straight away up front, was the governance and making sure that it was going to be representative of the community so that every voice in this valley had equal weight. And we've achieved that with the governance structure that's proposed.
Well, how come your track record of elected board, the CLWA has always had a large number elected board, like 11 members. How come your track record, every time a public member tries to get on there, that's not part of the water or not part of the local political clique, they can't get on? That's what a large number of board does, and you're going to have a large number of board in the new district.
Right, let's give Steve an opportunity.
Yeah, I think the electoral divisions were specifically designed to try and address that issue.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
My simple comment is that this all seems to be driven from the top down, and I don't see a grassroots desire from the people in the Santa Clarita Valley to make this happen. So that's my observation. My question is, why won't you allow a referendum, non-binding, from the people in the Newhall County Water District to vote whether they want to form a new agency with a Castaic Lake Water Agency? That would seem like it would be reflective of the voters. If this is such a great deal, go out and sell it to the voters. So question number 2 is, what's happening with Bill Pexy? Are you going to hold a special election to fill his vacancy? Has he moved? Is the seat vacant? What is the status of Bill Pexy, and what do you intend to do about filling his seat? Thank you.
Mr. Pexy is still on the board, and he's living here in town. He's still a resident. So,
Where does he live?
I don't know his address, but he's still living here in town. And at the appropriate time, if he decides to leave and declare his seat vacant, then we will certainly fill that by whatever means the board of directors would decide, not me or any one individual by the board, of how to do that. An election for CLWA runs about $500,000.
No, for Newhall County.
No, for CLWA. Mr. Pexy's on CLWA. Okay. To replace would be about $500,000. And we've looked at.
His area. How many voters are in Pexy's area?
His division, I don't remember what number. It's a third of the.
60,000.
It's about a third of the valley.
Yeah. He has.
Okay, well,
one.
Yeah.
But it always comes down to elections are too expensive. You talk about how important this is for the voters. The voters are not getting a say in this whole process. And that's just an observation. I wasn't,
Good.
I'll say this. Mr. Pexy, the newspaper announcement talked about him stepping down as vice president of the Castaic Lake Water Agency Board. He wasn't stepping off the board. That was not made clear in the article. It's unfortunate. So anyway, he's still on the board. He lives in town. He's a qualified board member, and he has not yet decided to move. He's thinking about it, and when he does, we'll address how to replace him at that time. Okay?
All right. So, okay, go ahead.
I just have two quick
Quick questions, because it's
I
you,
see, I
Patty.
know.
It's you, Patty, and I get to ask one question at the end, and then we're going to call it quits. Okay?
Okay. So you were talking about your purchase of Valencia Water Company, and I happen to have copies of the purchase agreement. And in various sections in the purchase agreement, it says that all of the recycled water from the valley will be delivered to Newhall Ranch Development.
No.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. And then
They're
there's...
building their own recycled water system for Newhall Ranch. We have nothing to do with that.
Okay. Well, I'll get you copies of the purchase agreement and the contracts.
No, we've seen the agreement between the Santa Clarita Sanitation District and Newhall Ranch, and it does say that they're going to supply Newhall Ranch with recycled water. Now, how much? That's another question.
I think what you'll see in it is that they will be supplied recycled water, which is a part of their water supply that they identified to the County Board of Supervisors with their own water treatment plant, not us. We don't do that. I mean, we're providing reclaimed water to, right now, to TPC, to the golf course, the lake that's there. That's the easiest one. That's the first one. There'll be areas that are close to the sanitation plants that'll be done first. And that's the way a recycled system
Okay,
works.
I think we're talking past each other a little bit, because the agreement that she's referencing is not between CLWA and Newhall Ranch.
It's part of the eminent
It's
domain
between-
agreement.
It is between the Santa Clarita Sanitation District
Right.
and Newhall Ranch.
And
That's not us.
that's not Castaic Lake, and it's not Newhall County. What's going to happen is that recycling system is going to be phased in, and the first 6,000 units that get built will use water from the sanitation district until they get their complete recycling system online. And then that amount of water will go away, and it'll only be Newhall Ranch using their own water.
Okay. And then my second question is, if Valencia Water Company is absorbed into this new super agency, will the dividends cease to be paid at $800,000 a year? And when we're talking about that, that's ratepayer money, and I'm not sure how that is appropriate or how that fits in with Prop 218. Paying dividends from ratepayer money. And then my last comment is, BJ had made a reference in one of the articles where he spoke about paying 2017 water rates in 2026, and I just want to get some understanding around that. And then I'm done.
I think I did not say that. You show me the reference that I said that we'd have 2017 rates in 2026. We were trying to keep them stable. I did say that.
Maybe I'll.
Can you talk
no
about
more
the dividends?
questions. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the one that Stacy asked and wasn't responded. You mentioned that group met together for 2 years to develop this plan. What group is that? Who was in it? And were those meetings publicly noticed?
So, yeah, I can walk you through kind of the process, and that's one thing I didn't go into in the previous presentation that I did here. We went into that process in depth. So I can kind of walk you through the timeline of how that worked. Originally, for the first year, This was part of ongoing legal settlement negotiations. And so those were being conducted with an ad hoc group between both boards. So there were 2 members from each board that were having those discussions. Those were being professionally facilitated. And out of that came some principles that we were starting to look at a bigger, more comprehensive solution. So early last year, we came out and started talking to the community and engaged the community. If you remember the engagement slide, we started hosting several public forums that we engaged the community. I know several of you were there, and we talked through the different aspects of what was important to the community, what was being considered, and we've continued to do that through last year and this year, presenting that information. Both boards, since the legislation's been introduced, have had a standing agenda item at their monthly board meetings that is available also for the public to participate and weigh in on.
One more quick one. Who delivers the water to the Chiquita Canyon landfill?
Currently, I think currently they have their own well, or there's a contract with possibly Newhall Ranch that supplies Chiquita Canyon with non-potable water.
Steve, I'm a little discouraged that you downplayed how much it's costing us to do this merger, us Newhall County Water District. We just redid our budget. There was $160,000 in it last year for this, and now there's $160,000 in it again. An election probably would have cost $180,000. So the intent here is to not allow the people a voice. And the community is very upset about that, and I've mentioned that many times at the board. You know, many people in the area have been doing Public Records Act requests because there is concern about the veracity of what they're being told. There's been Public Records Act requests to both Castaic Lake Water Agency and to our water agency. So we have the invoices. Everyone has the invoices. They've been posted on the community water page. It does not look good for you to stand up and say that the $5,000 a month that Townsend is paid, he would get anyway. And wouldn't it be more productive to pay him to do something like lobby for grants rather than spend all this money? And I mean, I'm just talking about our side. I'm not talking about CLWA's side. They've spent tons of money. Their attorneys are more expensive than ours. But I think, you know, I watch your presentation and there's so many half-truths in it. It's really hard to and I have to say I'm very discouraged about your answers about the costs because everybody has that information. It's up on Facebook pages. So it makes our water district look bad because you're telling people things that are not true. And I think it would be more important to say the truth, just like when we went to the meetings up in Sacramento and the local government committee and the natural resources were told that their water supply assessments were all done for Newhall Ranch. And then I do a Public Records Act to the county and know they're not done. I mean, telling people the truth is important. And the truth is not coming out in this because this bill is not what it seems. It's to supply a lot of water down to Newhall Ranch, which were the big white areas in there that no one mentioned in that map. And it's not a good deal for the public. The purchase of Valencia Water Company was not a good deal for the public. The agreement that CLWA made promised all the recycled water that Valencia Water Company would need. Everything is built for Valencia Water Company and Newhall Ranch. That's why there's not water on the eastern end. We've had plans since 2002 to bring water to the eastern end. And I am very, I'm sorry, it just discourages me because you're not really giving the Valley a fair shake on this, and our water community, our water company, should not be dissolved without a public vote. You now will have spent more than it would have cost to give us a vote.
All right. I just want to make sure we can do this within a reasonable amount of time. Okay? One thing is that Stacy gave me an email that Matt sent out to Steve. And what she was talking about is in it says, see B.J. Atkins quote attributed in the Gazette column, imagine paying 2017 rates in 2030. So I don't know what that means. Oh. This was in relationship to the question that Stacy was asking was in relationship to an email that was sent from Matt to Steve. Okay. That in it says, see B.J. Atkins quote, okay. Attributed in the Gazette column, imagine paying 2017 rates in 2030.
That's way different than what Stacy just said.
No, that's exactly what I just said, except I said 2023. It should have been 2030.
Imagine. What if that could happen? What if we were able to stabilize? What if we were able to stabilize rates so much that we were paying 2017 rates in 2026? I'm just saying.
All right. Okay.
That was taken out of context, and it was an unfair characterization.
I'm not taking anything. I just read it. All right, but here's my question. My question has nothing to do with water.
Okay.
It's a management question. Okay, we're talking about taking 2 to 4 large entities and combining them. Right? That's what we're talking about doing. So it just seems to me that even if I'm just looking at CLWA with a fairly good-sized budget every year, and I know that we have a large CLWA complex up above Central Park, and we have a new building for Newhall Water over in Newhall, and I'm sure there's something for Valencia. When we start combining all these things, it just seems like $1.4 million a year is not very much. It seems like from a management standpoint, we could have combined facilities, combined maintenance yards, combined things. And when we say we're going to do it by attrition, it basically says we're not going to lay anybody off. We're just going to keep going the way we are and then hope that it goes down and we get $1.4 million a year. So can you give us any more of a concrete perspective of how the savings is going to be attained?
Sure. I think when we went through the study, the main objective was not to overstate savings. And so we have, in the study, we talk about the buildings and the capital infrastructure that each of the agencies owns. We opine about that there will be the ability to consolidate and sell real estate and do those things. But we didn't include it in the savings number, because it was in the future too far. And so we wanted to be conservative in that projection, so that's why we projected that way.
Last question. I'd like to know, over time, how do the 9 directors get elected?
Great question. Does somebody else want to answer that one? Okay. So over time, the electorate will, as I mentioned, at first, both boards come together. So there will be a total of 15 members. And then the first election is scheduled to be held in 2020. And at that election, it will start paring down the electorate to reach a number of 12 per those electoral divisions.
Are they in districts?
Electoral divisions, yes. So let me give you the map here.
And is it staggered?
Yes.
Yes.
So the term, sorry, maybe I was getting too complicated, but so these are illustrations of the 3 divisions, the purple and the 2 orangish yellowish colors. Okay, so you're in 2. So you'll vote. Currently, the directors that fall within that division are listed there. In Division 2, you see the numbers.
So instead of being 5 open positions, there'll only be 4.
And then in 2009, there will be 3. Yeah.
Whoever gets the most votes at the top 4, they're there.
It's instituted in the bill. We will be at 9.
You got it.
Great. I'm going to close with one thought for the group. That's exactly it. For public agencies, change is extremely difficult. For board of directors to reduce numbers of seats is almost unheard of. And so that's something to think about as you deliberate through how and why we're considering this. It has been extremely difficult to get to this stage. It's been a lot of work. And we think the outcome is going to be worth it. And so that's the thought I wanted to close with the group today. And thank you very much for having us. Yeah.